Well, I did it again. I bought a whole month's worth of Vinegar Syndrome releases. I am not rich, so it's not something I can do all the time, but often when they have an update and I look at some of the titles and go, oh man, I want that so bad! And, oh, the other one looks really good too. I'm not too familiar with this one, but it's gotta be good, right? Which is how I end up getting the package that came out in April. So I'm gonna start at the one that I like the least and then move on to the ones that I like the best. Grave Secrets. I had never heard of this film before, and looking into it, I discovered it was directed by mostly a producer. Kind of a TV movie-ish film, but when I sat down and finally watched it, I enjoyed myself. The Vinegar Syndrome Archive release is a series that Vinegar Syndrome has where they can release films in these really cool VHS-style boxes, number them, charge more money for it, and also put the films that I don't know what makes the cut to go to Vinegar Syndrome Archive. I get the sense sometimes that it's like, ooh, yeah, this one, there's a little bit of difficulties with this motion picture. Maybe it doesn't hit all the beats that it needs to, so throw it on Vinegar Syndrome Archive. Now, that is not always the case. You have stuff like L.A. Wars, which is excellent, or Action USA, but Grave Secrets is definitely one of the lower tier pictures. It stars Paul Lamont as someone that investigates ghost things and gets invited to a bed and breakfast to figure out what's going on. The producer-director admits in the interview on this disc that he also considered maybe he could sell it to a Christian TV station, which is why there is no real gore or big monster effects in this picture. But it is very well done, it was engaging, has great performances, and the Grave Secrets of the title is actually really disturbing. I'm surprised that he thought that he could sell it to a Christian TV station, considering what the reveal of the Grave Secrets actually is. So moving on, we also have AllAmerican Murder. Now this one is being sold on the fact that Christopher Walken is in it, and that it also is kind of an American giallo, but I would say that's a bit of a stretch. This is actually more like an Agatha Christie murder mystery, which makes a lot of sense when you see that it's written by the guy who did a whole bunch of adaptations, including the very lurid Ken Russell film, Crimes of Passion. AllAmerican Murder was actually supposed to be directed by Ken Russell, which makes a lot of sense when you see the picture. The script is filled with ripe purple dialogue. Everything is a one-liner. The plot is about a young college student who's a bit of a troublemaker, has been kicked out left and right of all the college that his rich dad father puts him in, finds himself falling in love with the most popular girl in school, and then, there is a traumatic event, a murder happens, it's pinned on this young kid who is essentially kind of like a Zach Morris slash Ferris Bueller type, which makes sense because the actor in this picture, Charlie Schlater, actually played Ferris Bueller on the TV show. And now Christopher Walken, playing a one-liner spitting cop who loves basketball, tells this kid that he's got 24 hours to solve his murder or it's going to be pinned on him. So can our Ferris Bueller type find who actually did the murder in the picture? Well, you have to watch this to find out. It's got some really low reviews on Letterboxd, but I had a blast with it. The dialogue is super fun. It's a really engaging mystery, even though you will figure it out the second that you see the murder happen. But the way that it unrolls, introduces characters, and unfortunately doesn't really have that many murders, which makes calling it a giallo a bit of a stretch until like the last 15 minutes, when suddenly the bodies start piling up. As long as you go in not expecting a go-for-the-throat giallo, which is, the way that it's being sold, then you will have a blast with it. It is very colorful, which is probably where that giallo describer comes in, and it's got a real fast pace. Christopher Walken is Christopher Walken, but, he's having a blast. He kind of seems like he escaped from something like The Last Action Hero, especially when you consider his opening scene. This one has an interview with the star of the film. Commentary was to Hysteria Continues, and another interview was a cinematographer. Watch both interviews, super fun. They are not very big fans of the picture, but they're very honest, and I always love that when you get these kind of retrospectives. Moving on, we have The Cellar. This one is directed by Kevin Tenney, the man behind Night of the Demons, Pinocchio's Revenge, a really fun film called Peacemaker that is dying to get any kind of Blu-ray release. And I'm going to be honest, I ordered the April package. I thought this was Cellar Dweller, which is a completely different film that Shout Factory put out a number of years ago. And this one I hadn't seen, and I found it delightful. What's really great about this package is that it includes the director's cut of the film. So I'm not going to go through the whole story of how the picture came together, but basically Kevin Tenney was brought on in the middle of shooting 5 days in, I believe, and was just given the directorial reins. And he delivered a film that people really liked, but the producers panicked after they screened it and they they couldn't get as much money as they wanted for it, so they re-edited it. And that's the version that's been available on VHS since its release. And for the first time, we get the director's cut, which is leaner, much better, cuts out narration, rearranges things in the order that they should go. That's the version you want to watch when you watch this film. And the picture itself is one of my favorite subgenres, the kid versus a monster. So basically, a young kid goes and visits his dad, and they live in the middle of the desert in a new house that they bought, and uh-oh, there's something in the cellar. Actually, it's the cellar and mostly the grounds of where this house is. The kid is really charismatic. The parents that are played by Suzanne Savoy and Patrick Kilpatrick, a guy that always plays a bad guy. Kevin Tenney, I always feel that his films always have like pacing issues. He can be really energetic when the set pieces arrive, but there's often like a slow build-up, or maybe there's too much goof-em-ups. And in The Cellar, there's kind of a great balance that's struck, almost a stripped-down style that is not always apparent in his other pictures. And he really pulls it off. At 82 minutes, it moves quick. The monster's cool, looking kind of like a bootleg dog from Ghostbusters. And while it's not gory, because it was pitched as a PG-13, it is kind of shocking, and there's more deaths that you would think in this kind of picture. Highly recommend this one, and it's really great. There is a 40-plus minute making of about the picture where they go into detail of how it got screwed over, all of the ways that, you know, it was taken away from the director and how he was able to pull it off. You also get something that I can't really think I've seen on a release before, which is you get a commentary track on the director's cut with the director and the two stars, and then you get a different commentary track on the theatrical cut. So the one on the director's cut is what you would expect, behind the scenes info. Kevin Tenney is a great commentator. And then the one on the theatrical cut is them a little bit more free-flowing, but just ripping into this theatrical version and why it doesn't work as well as it should. Those two perspectives are something that I've always wanted to see on these kind of releases, and I'm glad that Kevin Tenney and the stars took the time to record two commentary tracks for people like me who are buying the Cellar, thinking it's Cellar Dweller, but being very impressed that it's a picture that, I'm going to be honest, is actually better than the one that I thought it was going to be. And finally, this is the pièce de résistance. Probably the best box set that I'm going to buy all year, unless you're the Andy Milligan one. And it is Homegrown Horrors Volume 1. So, anybody who's watched this video or knows my taste, I love regional horror films. And that's not something that I would think that Vinegar Syndrome would touch that much, because usually when I associate regional horror, it's more in the VHS era, and they have a rule that they don't really do video films. They only do stuff that they can scan the negative. And these films actually are like right on the tip of that, where they've got that kind of VHS feel, but even better, they are shot on film. So, this is Winterbeast, Beyond Dream's Door, and Fatal Exam. Now, two of these I love. I am a massive Winterbeast fan. If you haven't seen it, it's kind of like Equinox, the inspiration for The Evil Dead, but much shorter, much more incomprehensible, and with way more stop-motion monsters. Do you love stop-motion monsters? Then you need to see Winterbeast, because they are coming out of every pore of this motion picture. And not only that, but when the monster shows up, it'll show up once, it'll probably kill someone, never be seen in the movie again. Rangers are trying to figure out why these monsters are showing up and killing people. Could it have something to do with the very charismatic owner of the lodge in town who doesn't want to shut down his foliage festival because it'll cut his profit? Well, perhaps. But you may not even know that watching the film, because it is all over the place. This is a picture that, like, they shot one version, which you can actually watch on this Blu-ray for the first time ever. Then they went back in and shot, like, over the shoulders. They made more jokes. It is incomprehensible. Colored lighting is all over the place. They're clearly shooting it on sets because it's very flat. It is super entertaining. It has a great pounding electronic score. Full of monsters. What else do you need? Like, if you are a bad movie lover and you have a chance to watch this with friends, pure entertainment. Like, I would recommend this probably over any of the other movies that usually go into that category, because it has so much going for it. Kind of technical mishaps, really funny jokes that were done on purpose. The fact that it was reshot together, giving it kind of a surreal feel throughout. Dialogue just dropping out of the last 20 minutes until the final line, which is an all-timer. It ports over all of the special features that were on the long gone DVD version. There's tons of new special features, interviews with the actors, interview with the producer. It has the archival commentary as well, and the previously mentioned work print version, which is not completely different. There's a few extra shots here or there. It starts with full frontal male nudity, but it also makes more sense. A film like this is mostly known on being on video, so the colors are often very muted. But when you're dealing with gels and you transfer the original film print, bam, those colors pop. It just looks fantastic. Winterbeast gets my highest recommendation. The price of this box set, if somebody told me, oh, there's a Blu-ray, it's limited edition of Winterbeast and you have to pay this much, I would have paid it just for this. So, number 2, Beyond Dream's Door, which I was also familiar with. This one is also fantastic. It is a Nightmare on Elm Street, Buñuelian surrealism, throw it at the kitchen sink first motion picture that is just super charming. It is super ambitious. It's essentially about a young man who finds that his dreams are being manifested and infecting other people, and his dream images are coming to life, which take the form of a naked young woman, a guy with no hands, and a giant puppet monster that is constantly bursting through doors and ripping people's heads off. This one, like Winterbeast, super colorful, super fun. I highly recommend Beyond Dream's Door. I mean, I highly recommend both of these. They're so much fun. And like Winterbeast, this had an amazing DVD that the director had originally put together many, many years ago, long out of print. All of those special features have been brought back onto this Blu-ray. That could have been enough, but no, there's more. There's a new commentary. There's a new making of. Oh my God, like Vinegar Syndrome knocked it out of the park. They didn't need to do this much stuff for all these releases on this regional horror box set, but they did, making it the ultimate editions. You would want nothing more. And like Winterbeast, this one looks fantastic. It's always been known as muddy VHS transfers. Even the DVD looks kind of faded, but this one, it just pops. You see that grain, and this was not an easy undertaking because I believe they had to go back to the negative and recut it, perhaps, just because there are inserts on video throughout. Not that much, it's mostly on film, but that's really tough for these kind of pictures that existed only on video, is often they were completed on video, and when you complete something on video, that means the negative was never cut. So that's an issue, and you have to go back and do essentially the whole movie again to be able to release it on Blu-ray. And I believe Vinegar Syndrome did those things. If they didn't, they probably did something very similar, and it's now on Blu-ray to be enjoyed. Ah, so good. And finally, we have Fatal Exam. Nope, not Final Exam, the slasher film. This is Fatal Exam, a film that I had never heard about. And when I was reading about it, it wasn't getting very good reviews. People said it was a little bit generic, it was too talky, until I saw it was 2 hours long. Now, I don't like long movies. You know, I think most things can usually be 75, 80 minutes. It would just move fast. It would be fun. But when you hear that a regional slasher film is 2 hours, my interest is instantly piqued. Why is it that long? Why did they think it needed to be that long? And then when I finally watched the film, it just paid off exactly what I wanted. Is this film generic? Yes, very. Is it a slasher film? Not really. It takes, I think, almost 70 minutes before anybody gets killed in the motion pictures. Well, are the kills gory? No, not really either. So why are you excited? Why did you have a fun time watching this? You may be asking me, the person talking right now. Well, it's because this film feels weird. It feels wrong. It's 2 hours because characters are constantly talking in a dull monotone to each other. With every cut, there's a half second of characters just staring at each other, creating this feverish feel to the whole motion picture. It feels off. At some points, the music seems to be like, all right, hurry up, come on, let's go. Because the people putting together this film, of course, first-time feature filmmakers, they were passionate, but they didn't really quite know what they were doing. And that is the perfect feel for these kind of homegrown horrors. I mean, I would like a homegrown horror film to be great, to just really do it Evil Dead style, be efficient. But, of course, that's not always the case. I mean, mostly it's not the case. And the best examples are the ones that feel like they're beamed in from aliens. And this is what it feels like. I've described it as kind of like Chantal Akerman making a horror movie. But at the same time, it's also like all over the place, that there's quick editing. There are some stylish flourishes that really work, especially in the end part when it becomes an action movie and our surviving heroes are fighting a cloaked guy and having kind of like fist fights with them. So would I recommend this film to people who are not ready or are not on the wavelengths of this motion picture? No, absolutely not. not. I would not recommend this as a, like, get all your friends together and watch it film. I would recommend it instead for, you know, the art house aficionados, the people that have a taste for the odd being presented. And, like all the other releases, new special features on this as well, including a group commentary track with the director, the actor, the composer, the guy who did the sound effects, and 2 of the cast members, as well as a very charming making-of documentary that, again, is like 45 minutes, I think, where the director explains that he didn't really know what he was doing, that when they shot the movie, they shot not out of order, but pieces all over the place. So there would be like a dialogue scene, and like, you know, he would shoot actors weeks apart, which is why it feels so weird, and people are constantly explaining to each other what they saw as opposed to the director just showing it to us. And you also get like all of these people who they just had a great time putting this motion picture together. You also get a sense out of all of these that making movies, especially on film, is not easy. And when you're shooting on film, it costs so much money for stock, to develop, to be able to edit it. You can't just do it at home. And you really get the journeys that all of these homegrown horrors people went through, which I love. Those are the kind of things that are my favorite. And this documentary as well explains to why maybe the movie's so long, considering the director edited on a hand-cranked editor, not being able to listen to the dialogue, and not even getting the correct frame rate as he was doing because it would feel as fast as he could crank it with his hand, which explains a lot, but also gives it a feel that almost none of these films have. So even if I'm talking about Fatal Exam, you're like, I don't know if that's really my thing. Well, the Homegrown Horror box set, it's worth it for just Winterbeast and Beyond Dream's Door. And Fatal Exam, for the real connoisseurs, yeah, this is another great one, and I may not have gotten it if it had just been released on its own and I had read the review, so I'm really glad it was included in this box set. We live in the time of box sets now. All the boutique Blu-ray labels have figured out that people will shell out the big bucks if they just want 1 or 2 movies or they want something complete. And on one hand, I'm like, oh my god, everything is so expensive now. On the other, it gives companies like Vinegar Syndrome an opportunity to go all out on movies like Winterbeast, Beyond Dream's Door, and Fatal Exam. And of course, like all their box sets, it comes in a beautiful packaging. They do it like nobody else does, and while it is sometimes a little bit difficult to get it into the box, I mean, these Vinegar Archive Blu-rays, oh boy, they look great. They will rip the heck out of your Blu-rays if you aren't careful. Like the first few that I got, you really need to figure out how to go like under and make sure that when you go in that it doesn't get caught on the edge. I wish it was a little bit less tight, but I'm sure Vinegar Syndrome, there's reason for this, that maybe it would slip out. It needs to hold it, which is why it is as tight as it is. So that's it for Vinegar Syndrome. It was a great month. I was really happy with everything that was in the package. I would definitely recommend the Homegrown Horror box set. No contest, pick it up. It's like $60 US on the website. Do it now before it goes out of print. Now, will these movies be released individually? Of course they will. There is no chance that they're only going to be kept in this box set. So if you're feeling a little wary, you could probably wait a little bit, but everybody else, if you're watching this, that means you probably like this stuff already. Get this box set. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and you want to hear me talk about more Blu-rays, me and Mark Hansen, the product manager at the Bay Street Video Store, a brick and mortar video store, do it every week on the Bay Street Video Podcast. We go through all the new releases, Vinegar Syndrome, everything, Warner Archives. Check it out. The link is below. And also, if you could do me a really big favor, subscribe to my YouTube channel, please. It's right there. I would appreciate it. And if you do that, it'll just put a smile on my face. Thanks for watching.